Don't call my grandmother, please. If she sends the car, no one will ever come for me again. It was 6:50 on a Thursday evening in November, in the emptied lobby of a Gangnam academy where the floor polish smelled of lemon, when Adaeze Okonkwo, 9 months into a visa she could not afford to lose, heard it. The boy's family name was printed on half the buildings between there and the river. Adaeze assumed she would hand him to the front desk and catch her bus. What she did instead kept her in that lobby past midnight and rearranged the year that followed. The building emptied in its familiar order, the math instructors at 6, the receptionist at 6:15, coat already on, keys spinning around one finger. The cleaning crew rolled their mop cart down the corridor and did not look at the child sitting beneath the wall clock with his backpack still buckled across his chest, both shoes flat on the floor, as though someone had told him long ago that moving made things worse. 2 teachers passed him. One murmured that the driver was probably stuck on the bridge. The other checked her phone and kept walking, because at this academy, that surname meant the problem always solved itself, and nobody wanted to be standing nearby when it did. Adaeze had 38 minutes to reach Sinsa, where 3 nights a week she wiped tables at a fried chicken place until 11 for the money that became her mother's blood pressure tablets in Enugu and her sister's second-term fees. She knew what a missed shift cost, to the one. She knew what her landlord in Silim thought of tenants who paid late. She stood in the doorway with her green plastic lunch tin under her arm and did the arithmetic she always did before she was kind, and the arithmetic said go. The boy was 8, Han Ji-ho, 2nd row, 3rd seat. He had not spoken aloud in her class since the 2nd week of October. He wrote his answers in pencil, small and exact, and handed them over without lifting his eyes. Now she crouched to his level and asked, in her careful Korean, who they should call. He shook his head. The emergency contact rang 11 times and stopped. The number under it had been disconnected. What held her there was the shape of his request. He had not asked for the car, he had asked her not to call it. There was a car, that was the first thing his sentence gave her, before anything else, and Adaeze Obi turned it over the way she turned over a badly worded test question, hunting for the part someone had deliberately left out. A car existed. A car came for him. A car had a driver, and a driver had an employer, and an employer had rules, and somewhere in that chain of expensive certainty was the reason an 8-year-old boy had spent 6 weeks refusing to use his voice, and then spent it on 4 words in a cold corridor. Sion sang Nim, please don't call it. 7:24 on a Thursday night in late November. Room 23, 2nd floor, Myeongjin Private Elementary, in the walled hills above Seongbuk-dong where the streets had no shops and the houses had intercoms instead of doorbells. The radiator under the window ticked as it cooled. The hallway lights ran on a 30-minute timer, and when they clicked off, the whole floor went the color of dishwater, and you had to walk to the sensor by the stairwell and wave your arm at it like a woman flagging a taxi. Adaeze had waved at that sensor twice already. She knew she would wave at it again. The classroom still smelled of the tangerine peels in the recycling bin, and the floor wax the cleaning ajuma laid down at 5. 26 chairs sat upside down on 26 desks, legs in the air, the way the children had been taught to leave them. Only one chair was still on the floor, 2nd row, 3rd seat. Han Ji-ho had not moved from it in 4 hours. She knew the arithmetic of her own life to the 1 and to the minute, because that was the only way a person survived a contract like hers. Bus 143 from the bottom of the hill, then the Line 1 train, then 11 minutes on foot to a rooftop room in Huigyeongdong, with a door that swelled in the rain and a view of somebody's satellite dish. 52 minutes door to door if she caught the 712. After 9, the buses came when they felt like it. On the 28th of every month, she wired 1,400,000 won to a bank in Enugu, and that money was not hers in any sense that mattered. It was her mother's blood pressure tablets and her brother Chidi's fees at Nsuka, and the roof her sister-in-law had been promising to fix since the last rainy season. Her visa was an E2, sponsored, renewable, and the renewal packet sat in her drawer at home with 2 documents still unsigned. Vice Principal Ryu Myung-hwa kept a small notebook. Everyone knew about the notebook. Nobody had ever seen inside it. The contract Adaeze had signed in her 2nd year contained a clause about sole supervision of a student outside instructional hours. It contained another about transporting students in private vehicles. It contained a third about contacting guardians only through the school office, and the school office had closed at 6:30, and the office key hung on a hook behind the front desk where the night guard, Mr. Bang, could not legally give it to her, and always did. So the arithmetic said go. It said hand him to the guard hut, sign the log, catch the 712, sleep, teach 6 classes tomorrow, keep your name out of the notebook. It said that a foreign teacher on a renewable contract does not become the last adult standing in a story about a rich family. The arithmetic had never once been wrong about what was safe. She put her green plastic lunch tin down on the front desk instead. The tin was from Balogun Market, bought in the last week before she flew, chosen for the rubber seal that clamped down on all 4 sides, because a tin that leaked inside a suitcase could ruin 3 months of clothing before the plane even landed. It had crossed an ocean packed with dried pepper and a wrap her mother folded into 8. Tonight it held what was left of Sunday, rice fried the day before, 2 rounds of plantain gone cold and gone sweeter for it, a spoonful of stew she had been saving for tomorrow's break because the staff kitchen charged 4,001 for a sandwich she did not like. The clamps came up with 2 small snaps, loud in an empty classroom. The boy did not look at the food, he looked at the clamps. She set the tin in front of him on the desk, turned it so the plantain faced him, and put her own plastic spoon beside it. Then she waited. He kept his hands flat on his knees. She waited longer, and the waiting began to feel like a wall she had walked into without seeing it, and she thought, he does not want food from a stranger. He does not want food that smells like this. I have embarrassed us both. She picked up the spoon herself, took a mouthful of the cold rice, and only then did his hand move. It was a small thing. It took her 3 weeks and 1 patient conversation with the school cook before she understood it. That the youngest at a Korean table does not lift a spoon before the eldest. That his stillness had been manners and not refusal. That he had been sitting in a locked room since 4 in the afternoon waiting for someone to begin. He ate the plantain first, in careful bites, holding it with 2 fingers like something borrowed. Then he ate the rice. Then he stopped, put the spoon down at a right angle to the tin, and pushed the tin 2 centimeters toward her, because half was still in it and half was hers. Eat first, she said. Then we wait. He nodded as though she had explained a rule he could follow. The vice principal came at 8:10 with the incident log under her arm and her coat already buttoned. She stood in the doorway rather than entering, which was its own sentence. Policy, she said, in English, slowly, the way people do when they want a word to sound heavier. Uncollected students go to the front office. The office locks at 9. And then? Then the night guard sits with him. The night guard is 71, and he does the West building at 9:30. The vice principal opened the log, uncapped a pen, and let it hover. If you stay, I write your name. There it was, the notebook, the soft machinery of a school where nothing dangerous ever happens on paper. The arithmetic in her head recited itself once more, patient as a tutor. February renewal, 1 sponsor, 1 visa, 1 sister in her final year at Enugu with fees due in 6 weeks, 1 mother with a prescription that cost more each quarter. Names in notebooks traveled. Names in notebooks got remembered when a family with lawyers decided something had gone wrong. Write it, she said. The pen moved. The vice principal's face did not change, but her hand paused halfway through, and she wrote the second half of the name smaller, as if to take up less space in the record. The emergency sheet was in the folder taped inside the cabinet door. 2 contacts. The first was labeled Mother. In the school's neat print, and someone had drawn a single blue line through the digits, 1 clean stroke, no explanation, the kind of line a person makes when they cannot bear to erase. She looked at it for a second too long, then she dialed the second. A woman answered on the 4th ring. Not a home. She could hear keyboards, a printer, the particular hush of a floor where people were still working at 8:30. The chairman is in a meeting until late, the woman said. A vehicle will be arranged. Arranged when? Shortly. At 9:40 she called again, and a different voice, younger, apologetic in the way that means nothing will change, told her the vehicle had been redirected. At 10:15 the number rang 11 times and stopped. She wrote her sums on the back of a phonics worksheet, in pencil, in the margin beside a cartoon frog. Last 143 bus from the corner, 11:20. Taxi from this neighborhood to hers, 18,001 if the driver took the bridge, 22 if he took the tunnel. She had 31,000 in her wallet and a transfer of 220,000 due home on Friday. She circled the 18. She looked at the circle. She thought about how much of her life had been survived by circling the smaller number. Then she folded the worksheet and put it in her bag, and did not look at it again. The boy asked for a pencil at 10:30. He wrote her surname on the whiteboard from memory and got it wrong by one letter, which she did not correct, because he had written it with the care of someone copying scripture. Below it he wrote a number, 4:10, the time the last car had come for the last child. "Nobody stays past the second bell," he said. His English was better than she had been told. His voice was small and flat, the voice of a child who had rehearsed the sentence in his head so often it had worn smooth. "Tonight somebody does," she said. He capped the pencil. Then he came and sat one desk closer, not beside her, one desk closer, and she understood she was not to make anything of it. Down in the courtyard, the sensor light kept clicking on and off in the sleet. Across the road, past the school's iron gate, a black sedan had been parked with its engine running since before 8. She noticed it at 10 to 11, when its wipers moved once, and she assumed a driver was waiting out the weather for someone else. In the corridor, above the trophy case, the small dome of the camera showed a steady red pinprick. The night guard had come by twice, and the second time he said, without meeting her eyes, "Someone called from the security desk. They asked who is with the boy." "Who asked?" He shrugged and left, and his mop wheels squeaked all the way to the stairwell. At 11:20, the 143 groaned past the gate and pulled away with 3 passengers and 1 empty seat, and she did not move. At 11:52, headlights swung across the ceiling of the classroom, bright enough to make the boy sit up straight. 2 cars, doors, footsteps on the wet stairs, fast, and more than one man's. The boy's hand closed around the edge of the green tin. The door of room 32 stuck in wet weather. Ifeoma knew this because she had been fighting it since March, and because at 12 minutes past 8, she had wedged a folded worksheet under the frame so it would not bang while the boy slept with his cheek on his own arm. The footsteps stopped outside it. They did not knock. Through the long glass panel she saw a shoulder, then a coat, then a man's profile turned toward the window rather than the door, as though he were reading the room before entering it. He stood there. She counted the seconds without meaning to. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 11, while the corridor lights buzzed and the rain slid down the corridor windows in slow diagonal ropes, and the boy sat up straighter beside her, with the green tin gripped against his stomach. Then the door opened without difficulty, because a hand behind him lifted it slightly on its hinge, and 3 people came in out of the dark. The first was broad and short-haired, an earpiece cord running into his collar, and his eyes went to the ceiling corners before they went to her. The second was a woman of about 40 in a gray coat, holding a tablet flat against her chest like a hymn book. The third came last and stood 2 steps inside the door, and Ifeoma understood immediately that the other 2 had arranged themselves around him the way furniture arranges itself around a room's true center. His coat was soaked at the shoulders. His shoes were ruined. He did not look at the shoes. Ha-jun, one word, low, not a shout, and somehow worse than one. The boy did not run to him. That was the thing Ifeoma would remember later, sitting on the last bus with her wet skirt cold against her knees. Ha-jun stood up, because a child stands when his father says his name, and he stood exactly where he was, one hand on the desk, the other around the tin, and he looked at the floor tiles between them. The woman in the gray coat stepped forward with a small, professional smile. "You are the after-school teacher? English conversation, Wednesdays?" "Mondays and Wednesdays." Ifeoma set her phone face down on the desk, 8%, and Thursdays for the second-year class. "We are very grateful. There was a scheduling error at the residence. The driver was reassigned this afternoon and the message did not, 'May I see identification, please?' The room changed temperature. The security man's chin lifted a centimeter. The woman's smile stayed exactly where it was, like a picture nailed to a wall. 'Excuse me? He is 9 years old,' Ifeoma said. Her Korean was careful. The honorifics laid down one by one like stepping stones across a stream. 4 adults have come through this school tonight and none of them was on his form. I wrote every one of them in the book. I will write you also. Identification, please." Nobody spoke. Outside, a car door thunked in the dark, and the rain went on ruining everybody's shoes. The man in the wet coat reached into his jacket and held out a slim black card between 2 fingers, and when she took it, he did not let go immediately, so that for half a second they were both holding it. Seo Jin-woo. A company name she had seen on the side of a building in Yoedo from the window of a bus, in letters 2 stories high, on the days when the traffic was bad enough to give her time to read them. "Now you know who I am," he said. "That is not identification. That is advertising. He took out a driver's license and gave her that too. She wrote both into the departure log. Name, relationship, time, 11:58 p.m. Then she turned the ledger around on the desk and pushed it toward him, because she was tired, and because the record was the only thing in the room that belonged entirely to her. He looked down at it. The page was ruled into narrow columns and her handwriting filled them, small and upright, in blue. 1840, class ends, guardian not present. 1910, called listed mobile, no answer. 1935, called school office, closed. 2005, called listed mobile, no answer, left message. 2041, called company main line, requested guardian be informed. 2115, offered dinner from cafeteria, child ate rice and 1 egg. 2150, child asked for the light to stay on. 2230, called listed mobile, voicemail full. 23 a crack, remained with child. Bus 143 missed. 2320, bus 143 missed. 10 lines, he read them twice. She watched a muscle move at the hinge of his jaw and nothing else on his face move at all. He ate, Seo Jinwoo said. Rice and 1 egg. The cafeteria aunties leave the rice warmer on until 9. He ate in front of you. He was hungry. She heard the flatness in her own voice and softened it, because the boy was standing right there. He asked for salt, twice. Something happened behind the man's eyes then, quick and private, and it was not gratitude. It was closer to the look of a man doing arithmetic and disliking the answer. The woman in the gray coat had gone very still, and Ifeoma noticed, with the useless clarity of exhaustion, that the woman was no longer smiling and no longer looking at anyone. 2041, he said. You called the main line. Yes. Who answered? A woman. She did not give a name. She asked which department I was calling for. I said it concerned Seo Ha-jun, at Baeksong Elementary, in Songbuk, and that no one had come for him. Ifeoma paused. She had rehearsed nothing, and yet the sentence came out whole, the way true things do. She said the chairman's family matters were not handled through that number, and that I should try again during business hours. The rain filled the silence. Seo Jinwoo took out his own phone, and he did not look at the woman in the gray coat, which somehow made it worse for her. Read me the number you dialed. Ifeoma turned her phone over, 8%, then 7 while she watched. She read the digits out slowly, and he typed them, and when he finished, he stood holding the screen in his hand, like a man holding a splinter he intended to remove himself. Ha-jun, he said, without turning. Get your bag. We are going home. The boy moved. He picked up his bag with one hand. The other hand still had the green tin in it, dented, paint-worn pale at the corners. The tin she carried plasters and chalk stubs and safety pins and 2 wrapped ginger sweets in. The tin that had been her mother's and had crossed an ocean in a suitcase. His father saw it. That is not yours. Ha-jun's fingers went white. He can keep it, Ifeoma said before she could count what it cost her. Until Wednesday. Downstairs, the sign-out book was still open on the front desk where she had left it at 7. Her own handwriting in the last line. The column for guardian's signature empty for 5 hours. Ifeoma wrote the time herself, 12:07. She turned the book around so the man could sign, and he signed without reading, a small hard signature like a nail-driven flat, and the security guard who had come up out of his chair the moment the 3 men entered, stood with his hands at his sides and said nothing at all. There were 2 of them behind him. One carried an umbrella, one carried nothing, which is its own kind of job. Outside, the rain had thinned into the sort of drizzle that gets under a collar. The umbrella went up over the boy. Nobody offered her one. The car at the curb was long and dark and so quiet when it started that she heard the wipers before she heard the engine. And through the window as it pulled out she saw Ha-jun's palm flat against the glass, and under his palm, held to his chest with the other arm, the green tin. The last bus to Mangwon had gone at 11:50. A taxi was 11,001. 11,001 was 2 days of rice and eggs, or half the courier fee for the box she sent home at the end of every month. And so Ifeoma pulled her hood up and walked the 40 minutes along the wet river road, counting the cost of the evening the way she counted everything, out loud, under her breath, in naira and in won, the way her mother had taught her to count yams in Balogun market so that no trader could confuse her with kindness. Chalk 3 sticks, plasters 4, 2 ginger sweets, 1 tin. At 7:40 the next morning, the staff room smelled of instant coffee and radiator dust, and Director No was waiting with a printout in her hand. You kept a student until midnight. His guardian did not come. There is a procedure. Director No set the printout down, squared it again. You call the emergency number. If there is no answer, you call the police station in Mapo. You do not sit in a classroom alone with a child for 5 hours. Do you know what a parent can say about that? Do you know what one sentence in a mother's group chat does to an academy? She looked at the wall clock instead of at Ifeoma. Your contract renews in April. Your visa is sponsored by this building. I am saying this as a kindness. It was not a kindness, Ifeoma said, but I understand it. She had her 9:40 class and her 11:20 class, and she taught them both, the vowel chart, the rain song, 12 children singing about weather they could hear on the windows. At 12:15, the black car came back and parked in the loading zone where nobody was ever allowed to park, and the woman who got out of it was in gray with her hair pinned so precisely it looked structural, and Director No's face, when she saw the card the woman held, did something Ifeoma had not seen a Korean administrator's face do before. It emptied, then it refilled, quickly, with warmth. They gave the woman the consultation room, the good one with the fake orchid. My name is Baek Sun Young. She placed 2 things on the table with the same gesture, as if they weighed the same. A business card, a white envelope, thick, unsealed. I am Chief of Staff to Seo Do-hyun. Ifeoma waited, Seo-wan E and C. Miss Baek allowed a small pause, the pause of a person accustomed to the name doing the work. The tower going up behind the station, the bridge repair, the building you are sitting in belongs to a subsidiary. Another pause. The man who came for the child last night is the chairman's son. He is also the chairman. Outside the window, a crane swung its long arm across the gray sky with a logo she had looked at every morning for 8 months without once reading it as a family. He asked me to correct something, Ms. Beck said. He was told the academy closed at 7. He was told the child was collected at 7. He was told this on Monday and Tuesday and last night by people who are no longer employed. The driver came at 8. The gate at the apartment was open. Nobody counted the child. She said it without any change of tone, and only her thumb, moving once along the edge of the envelope, showed that she had been awake since 3. This is for your time and your inconvenience. Ifeoma did not touch it. How much is in it? 5 million. Then it is not for my time. She folded her hands. My hourly rate here is 19,000 won. 5 hours is 95,000. If you want to pay me for last night, pay me 95,000 and the taxi I did not take, and I will sign whatever you like. For the first time, Ms. Baek looked directly at her, and something behind the pins loosened by a millimeter. She had prepared for 3 kinds of woman on the drive over. A woman who would weep and ask for more. A woman who would refuse loudly for an audience. A woman who would take it and then talk. She had not prepared an invoice. There is a second matter, she said. The chairman would like to engage you privately. 3 evenings a week. English, ostensibly. Transport provided, both directions. 4 times what this academy pays you, and the academy will be compensated for the schedule. Ostensibly, Ifeoma repeated. Ms. Baek set her tablet down and turned it face down, which was, in its way, an answer. Ha-jun's mother died in March. 11 weeks ago he stopped speaking, not selectively. Not at home, not at school, not to the specialist in Cheongdam who charges 400,000 won an hour and has been paid for 9 sessions of silence. She smoothed the tablecloth. Last night the chairman stood in the corridor outside your classroom for 4 minutes before he knocked. The older woman let the number sit there, the way a person sets down a cup they intend to pick up again. 4 minutes. I have worked for that family for 19 years. I have never known him to wait 4 minutes for anything, including a president. Amara turned her teacup a quarter circle on its saucer. Chalk dust had dried into the cuff of her cardigan in a pale crescent, and she had noticed it in the lift on the way up to this tea room, 2nd floor, courtyard view, a tray of small pale cakes nobody had touched, and decided not to hide it. If they wanted her, they could want her with the chalk on her. Why did he wait? Because he heard the desk. The desk. You told my chairman's son that speaking was not the only way to answer a question. The woman's hands folded and refolded the linen napkin. Precise, dry, the movement of someone who did not permit herself larger gestures. 1 knock for yes, 2 for no. You said it once, at 9 minutes past 11, and then you did not say it again, and you went on marking your papers. He was outside the door at 20 past. He heard you ask whether the light was too bright. She paused. He heard 2 knocks. The barley tea went on steaming. In 11 weeks, the woman said. That is the first answer anyone has received from that child. Not the specialist, not his grandmother, not his father, who asks him something every morning at 7 and eats breakfast alone afterwards. Amara looked out at the courtyard, where a gardener was sweeping ginkgo leaves into a wet gold pile, and did her arithmetic. She was good at arithmetic. 240,001 every month to Enugu for her mother's medication and her brother's fees. Rent in Huagok, 410,000, due on the 11th. A contract with Yonhua Language School that paid $2 million for, and an E2 visa stapled to that contract like a leash. One employer, one address, one signature standing between her and a flight she could not afford to take. You want me to tutor him, she said. We want you in the house 3 evenings a week, 6 until 9. The salary is $3,800,000 a month. That is more than my school pays me for a whole month of full days. Yes. Then it is not a salary. It is a bribe against disappointment. Amara set the cup down. If he does not speak in 8 weeks, you will decide the money bought nothing, and I will be the one who failed. Pay me the school's hourly rate, 22,001 an hour, 9 hours a week, not one more. The older woman's eyelids moved, once, the way a shutter moves. And I cannot take it anyway, Amara went on. My visa permits me to teach in one place. If I stand in your kitchen and take your money, immigration can put me on a plane inside a week, and the school can say they knew nothing, and they would be telling the truth. The folder came across the tablecloth without hurry. Inside, an application for a supplementary workplace permit, half completed in a lawyer's careful hand, and clipped to it, on Yonhua letterhead, a consent letter already signed by Vice Principal Guak, dated that morning at 9:40. Amara looked at the signature for a long moment. She thought about Guak, who had asked her twice this term whether her students' parents understood her English. She thought about how a signature like that travels down a corridor, into the teacher's room, into the copier queue, into the mouths of women who share a kettle. Take it back, she said. It is legal, and now 11 people at my school know that a rich family wants me, and I have not yet said yes. She pushed the folder 2 inches away. Withdraw the letter until Friday. If I decide to come, I will hand it in myself, with my own explanation, standing in front of him. I have worked 4 years to be a teacher there and not a story. The gardener's broom scraped. Somewhere below, a delivery motorbike coughed and died somewhere behind the wall, and the morning went back to being quiet. Yoon Do-hyun did not answer at once. He had built 20 years of meetings on the habit of not answering at once, on letting other people fill silence with their weaknesses. This silence refused to help him. Across the low table, the woman who had spent 4 years learning to be called Sansang-nim by children who could not pronounce her surname sat with her hands folded in her lap, her tea going cold on purpose, waiting like someone who had already priced the loss. He took out his phone and pressed 1 number. Bae, the letter to Hanbit Elementary. The secretary's voice came through small and eager. Hand-delivered by courier at 8:40, sir. Copied by email to the vice principal at 7:12, as instructed. He replied within the hour. Very cooperative. Do-hyun set the phone face down on the table with unusual care, as though it had become a heavier object. Adaeze watched his jaw shift once. Some part of her, the part that had grown up sharing a mattress with 2 cousins in Enugu and learning to read a room before entering it, noted that he was not embarrassed for himself. He was embarrassed in front of her, which was a different and more interesting thing. It is Saturday, she said, so by Monday the whole staff room will have read it before I have. I will call him myself. Today, I will tell him the letter was premature, and he will hear that a man with your name is asking a favor on my behalf, and he will smile at me on Monday the way people smile at a lottery ticket. She lifted her cup, found it lukewarm, drank it anyway. She had thrown away enough good tea in her life. I do not need you to fix it, Mr. Yoon. I need you to be present while I fix it. Friday, 4 o'clock, Vice Principal Gu's office. You will sit in a plastic chair that is too small for you, and you will say in your own voice what you want from me and why. Not your assistant, not your foundation, you. She counted, silently, while she waited. 4 years, 231 children she had taught to write. The, and, there. And their own English names in careful round letters. A visa that carried the school's stamp on page 9. Her mother's dialysis, 3 sessions a week. wired every 28 days from a bank branch in Mangwon, where the teller had stopped asking her to spell her surname. If this went wrong, it went wrong on all of those pages at once. She had already decided. She still made herself count, because a woman who does not count is a woman who wakes up owned. Do-hyun looked at the folder she had pushed away. "You are aware," he said, "that people ask me for things every day, and none of them ask for a plastic chair. Then you are overdue." The corner of his mouth moved. He caught it in time. A floorboard betrayed the hallway. Ha-jun stood in the doorway in mismatched socks, holding a sheet of printer paper against his chest with both hands like a shield, and the plastic hot chocolate cup from the school vending machine, washed, dried, still with the small dent where her thumb had been. He had carried it home at 1 in the morning and had not let the housekeeper throw it away. "I made a timetable," he said. He put the paper on the table between the two adults. Monday, Miss Ada. Tuesday, Miss Ada. Wednesday, piano, then Miss Ada. Each square filled in pencil pressed hard enough to tear. "That is a lot of Miss Ada," she said, "because you are the only one who came." He said it the way children say the sky is up there, a fact, no music in it. Then he looked at his father, briefly, and looked away, and the room learned something none of them wanted said out loud. "If you don't come, I'll wait again. In the same place. Until somebody comes." Do-hyun's hand closed slowly on the arm of his chair. Adaeze crouched to the boy's height, took the paper, folded it once and put it into her bag beside her marking pens so that he could see it going somewhere with her. "3 afternoons," she said. "Not because your father is rich. Because you did your homework in the dark corridor without being asked, and I do not waste students. And I do not live here, Ha-jun. I have my own house with my own kettle. Is your house big? It has 1 room and a rooftop and a very rude cat next door." "That's better," he said seriously. "Big houses are loud when nobody talks." Later at the gate, she taught him 1 word because he asked for a magic one. Biko. Please. He wrote it on the back of his hand in ballpoint, Biko, and mispronounced it 4 times with total confidence, and the gardener pretended not to smile into his broom. The driver held the sedan door open. She thanked him and walked to the bus stop at the bottom of the hill and rode 48 minutes across the river with her bag on her knees, past the glass towers and then past the cheap fruit stalls and then home, where she climbed the outside stairs to her rooftop room, sat on the floor and moved money between 3 envelopes until the sums stopped arguing. On Monday, the staff room smelled of instant coffee and someone's boiled eggs. Miss Beck from grade 3 put a hand on her arm before she reached her desk. "So, Hanamdong," a smile with a hinge in it, "we were saying, some people get lucky in this country by working, and some people get lucky by being seen." Ada put her bag down before she answered. That was a habit from home. Never reply to a provocation with your hands full. "I was seen because I stayed late," she said. "You are welcome to stay late with me. The heating goes off at 7, so bring a cardigan." Ms. Beck laughed the way people laugh when they have decided in advance to find something funny, and went back to her boiled eggs. But by second period, the story had grown legs. In the copier room, 2 grade 5 teachers stopped talking when she came in. At lunch, the science coordinator asked, with great friendliness, whether the Hanamdong house really had an elevator inside it. Someone had photographed the black sedan at the gate on Saturday evening through a car window, and the photograph had traveled through a parents' group chat with a caption that did not need a name. The new English teacher. In the picture, she was only a shoulder and a hand holding a canvas bag. It was enough. At 2:40, the office called her classroom phone. Vice Principal Ryu had a manila envelope squared to the edge of his desk, and he did not touch it while he spoke, which told her more than the envelope did. He asked about her weekend. He asked whether she was eating well. Then he said the word. Foundation. And the temperature of the room changed. "You are aware that the school is operated by the Seihan Education Foundation?" "Yes. Clause 9, Section 2 of your contract. Outside employment for a family connected to the sponsoring body without written approval." He turned the envelope a quarter inch, as if straightening it would soften it. "Nobody is accusing you of anything, Teacher Ada, but there is a review. Until it closes, your after-school program is suspended and your homeroom will be covered by Teacher Beck." "For how long?" The letter says Friday. She had taught 8-year-olds long enough to hear the shape of a sentence that hid a second sentence inside it. "And after Friday?" He looked at the envelope. "Renewal decisions for March are made in November." Her visa lived inside that renewal. 30 days after a sponsor withdrew, a person became a tourist in her own apartment. She had known that arithmetic since her first week in the country, the way you know where the fire exit is. The car came for her at 4:40 without being announced, not the sedan she knew, a different one, older, more serious, and it took her to the 14th floor of a gray building near Seo Samun, where the corridors smelled of paper and cold stone. Chairman Seo Byung-ho was 79. He stood when she entered, which she had not expected, and he poured jujube tea himself, which she had not expected either. And then he set a folder on the low table between them and did not open it. "Sit." She sat. "You are from Enugu," he said. "Your mother has a clinic appointment 3 times each week. Your brother is in his 2nd year, and his fees are due in January. Your rent is 480,000 won, and your landlord raised it in the spring without a contract, which was illegal, and you paid it." He rested one hand flat on the folder. "I did not have you followed. I asked one question, and this arrived on my desk in 2 hours. That is what my name does. I want you to understand it before we speak." "I understand it." "Then understand the second thing." He turned his cup a half circle on its saucer. "My grandson buried his mother 26 months ago. Since then, he has had 4 caregivers, 2 left for better money. 1 sold a photograph of his bedroom. 1 stayed 9 months and he began to sleep with her scarf, and when she married and moved to Daejeon, he stopped speaking for 11 weeks. The old man's voice did not rise. "You stayed with him in a corridor for 4 hours when everyone else went home. I stood outside that classroom for 4 minutes and I watched you cut an apple into 8 pieces and not once look at the door. So I am not asking whether you are qualified. 4 qualified women have already been paid to fail him." The old man set his cup down without sound. "I am asking whether you understand what it will cost you to matter to that child." She let the question sit. Outside the window, the gardener had moved on to the far hedge, and the scraping had thinned to something like distant rain. "It will cost me being ordinary," she said. "Yes. I like being ordinary. I am good at it." "I know." Something moved at the edge of his mouth and did not become a smile. "That is the only reason we are speaking." He took a card from his inner pocket and laid it on the tablecloth between the sugar bowl and her untouched water glass. No company name, no title, 11 digits printed small, and beneath them, in ink, 2 Korean characters she could not read. "When it comes," he said, "and it will come, do not answer it. Do not explain yourself to anyone with a recorder. Do not be polite to a stranger who already knows your school. You will ring this number first. When what comes? They will not be able to find a reason to dislike you." The old man rose, and his coat was held out for him before he had finished standing. "So they will make one. I would rather you had chosen your side of it before somebody else chose for you." She put the card in the zip pocket of her bag, the one where she kept her alien registration card and a folded photograph of her mother, and she went home on the 7016 bus and marked 32 vocabulary tests before midnight. It came 11 days later, on a Tuesday, at 7:12 in the morning. She learned it the way everyone learns these things now, sideways, from the wrong person. The 3rd grade homeroom teacher was standing at the staff room printer with her phone held low against her thigh, and when she saw the doorway, she pressed the phone to her chest as if the screen had bitten her. "You have not seen it," the woman said. "Seen what?" The phone came across the table face up, still warm. The headline used the family name, which meant the family had let it be used, which meant somewhere in a building in Yeodio a decision had been made not to spend money killing it. The photograph was the worst of it, not the headline, which used the Yun name in the phrase. Private arrangement. And not the paragraph about visa sponsorship that ended in a question mark so the lawyers would have nothing to bite. The photograph. Lobby camera, 3rd floor, timestamp, burned into the corner in cheap white digits. 0004. A woman in a school cardigan with a child's backpack hanging off one shoulder. A man in a suit with his tie already pulled loose, reaching for the strap. Anyone could read whatever they wanted into a picture taken at 4 minutes past midnight. 11,000 people did, before 9 in the morning. By first period, the parents' group chat had 400 messages. By lunch, the school had a statement drafted by someone in the district office who had never met her, and by 2 o'clock, the vice principal was explaining, with great gentleness, the concept of voluntary rest. Paid, of course. 2 weeks. Perhaps 3. Until it quieted. Chiamaka sat with her hands flat on the table and did the arithmetic she had been doing since she was 19. 2,100,000 won a month. Rent, 490. The remittance on the 25th that paid for her sister's 2nd year and her mother's blood pressure tablets, and the roof over the back room in Enugu that leaked in July. Her E2 was sponsored by this school. A contract not renewed in March was a plane ticket in April. Voluntary rest was a door closing slowly enough that everyone could pretend they had not pushed it. "I will teach my classes," she said. "Thursday I will answer whatever the district wants to ask me. Until then, my 6th period has a spelling test and I am the only one who can read my own handwriting." The vice principal looked at the wall clock as though it might help him. They called the parents' meeting for 4:40 in the multipurpose room. Folding chairs, a table with 3 bottles of water on it, and 41 adults who had come from offices and shops and one from a hospital shift, all of them holding phones. A reporter sat in the second row with his recorder face up on his knee, which was polite of him. Behind them, the copier in the office kept running, spitting out vocabulary tests nobody would grade tonight. The parents' representative was thorough. She was not cruel. She had a daughter in the 4th grade and a folder of screenshots, and she read the words. Private arrangement. Out loud twice and then asked, reasonably, why a homeroom teacher had been alone with one child in a locked building at 11 at night, with the corridor lights off and the front gate chained. Adaize stood up. She had spent the whole afternoon deciding whether it would look better to sit or to stand, and standing turned out to be easier on her hands. Because he was inside it, she said. The building was locked, and he was inside it. His ride did not come. The office closed at 6. I had the key to my own room and a phone with 11% battery, so I stayed in my room with the door open and the light on, and I waited with him. 41 phones made a sound like rain on a tin roof when everyone shifted at once. The reporter in the second row wrote 3 words and underlined one of them. The parents' representative, her name was Kang Mi-ran, and she had brought her own printouts in a clear file with a green tab, did not raise her voice. That was the worst part. She turned a page and said that she was sure Teacher Ada had good intentions, and that intentions were not the issue tonight. And then she asked the girl from the office to pass out the packet. The copier had finished the vocabulary tests. It had gone on to something else. The stapled pages came down the rows still warm, and Adaize watched them travel, and she understood that the sound she had been hearing behind the wall for the last 20 minutes was her own name being reproduced 41 times. Page 1 was a screenshot of the school's staff chat, timestamped 12:04 a.m., in which a colleague had written the words, "Private arrangement." Page 2 was a bank alert. It showed a deposit at 09:14 on a Tuesday morning. Ease Holdings Co., Ltd., 2,000,001, into an account ending in the 4 digits Adaize had memorized the day she opened it, standing in a bank in Sinsa with her passport and her contract, and a form she could only half read. There was no page 3. Page 3 would have shown the reversal she had authorized at 09:41 the same morning, 27 minutes later, from a stairwell during break, with her forehead against the cold painted block wall while a man's assistant on the other end of the line explained, patiently, twice, that this was simply how the household handled overtime. "I sent it back," Adaize said. "The same morning, I have the receipt. Anyone can show a phone screen," said a father near the door, not unkindly. He was a man in a delivery company windbreaker who had come straight from a shift, and he sounded tired rather than cruel. "That is all I am saying. Anyone can show a phone screen." She held her phone up anyway. Nobody in the 3rd row could see it. She lowered it and put it face down on the folding chair beside her, and she left it there, because a woman waving a telephone at a room looks like a woman who is losing. Vice Principal Bake cleared his throat and said the word. Regrettable. He said it 3 times over the next 4 minutes, spaced like punctuation. He explained that the school had already forwarded the matter to the district education office, as procedure required, and that Clause 14 of the foreign instructor contract prohibited instruction outside the designated institution, and that a visa sponsored by this school carried obligations the school itself was obliged to protect. He did not look at her once while he said any of it. Adaize noticed that. She had spent 3 weeks noticing exactly this, in a boy who could not look at a door, and now she watched a 56-year-old administrator do the same thing with a folding chair. Teacher Lim sat at the end of the front row with her ankles crossed and a pen she never used lying across a blank page. She did not nod while the administrator spoke. She did not shake her head. She simply held her body very still, the way people do when they have already decided something and are waiting for the room to catch up. The word the administrator finally used was pause, an instructional pause, effective immediately, pending the district's fact confirmation. Nobody in the room said suspension. Nobody had to. Adayeze understood the grammar of institutions well enough by now to know that the softest word in a memo is usually carrying the heaviest object. Mr. Bay from the English department raised 2 fingers, not a whole hand, and asked whether the Parents' Association had already been informed. There was a pause of the other kind. Miss Yoon from the front office, who kept the school's calendar in her head better than the school did, said that the notice had gone out at 6:41 that morning. Adayeze did the arithmetic without moving her face. The meeting had been called at 9. The notice had gone out at 20 to 7, which meant the discussion she had been sitting through for 11 minutes was not a discussion. She asked one question. She kept it small, because small questions are harder to refuse. "The fire drill is Friday," she said. "Who sits with him?" The administrator looked at the folding chair to her left, then at the projector remote, then at the clock. "The substitute will follow the standard procedure." "He does not follow the standard procedure," Adayeze said. "He follows the person who came for him last time." The administrator wrote something down. From where she sat, Adayeze could see it was 4 characters long, and she suspected it was the date. Her ID card stopped working on the 3rd-floor stairwell door at 10:04 that morning. She heard the small red beep twice before she believed it, and then she stood in the stairwell with her lanyard in her hand and the smell of floor wax rising off the steps, and she thought about the 18 laminated flashcards in her tote bag with the boys' 4 new words on them, which she had cut at midnight with kitchen scissors because the school's paper trimmer lived on the 3rd floor. They gave her the copy room instead. It had 1 window at ankle height, a photocopier that sighed like an old dog when it warmed up, and a laminating machine that ate the corner of her first card and released it with a smell of burnt sugar. Above her head, at 10:15, 30 chairs moved at once. She knew the sound of her own classroom's chairs. She knew which desk leg scraped. In the memo, he was student A. She read it 4 times that week, and it never stopped being strange, seeing a child reduced to the first letter of an alphabet that was not even his own. Student A had been on school premises after 21 o'clock. Student A had been in the company of a single instructor in a locked facility. The memo used the phrase, "alone in a locked building." Once, and by Wednesday the parents' group chat had used it 41 times, with screenshots, with the 9-second clip that a Yeouido morning program had run at 7:52, with everyone's face blurred except her hands, which were doing nothing more scandalous than tying a shoelace. A parent called the front office and asked, politely, whether the background checks for foreign instructors were the same ones. Ms. Yun answered politely that they were more. On Thursday, the substitute arrived from the agency. Teacher Han was 24, wore a headset microphone he did not need in a room of 28 children, and was, by every measure the school used, competent. He took attendance at 8:40. He read the roll in order. Teacher Lim, who taught the class next door, and had propped her door open with a rubber wedge for reasons she told nobody, listened for the 4th name. There was no 4th name. There was the sound of a boy counting something under his breath. Hinges, she thought later. 3 on the classroom door, 4 on the corridor door, 7 in total, always 7, and then the sound of Teacher Han moving on with a brightness that was not unkindness, only speed. At 12:40, the lunch tray came back to the kitchen window with the rice untouched and the spinach arranged into a small square in the corner, the way a person arranges food when they want the adults to believe they tried. Teacher Lim noticed. On Friday it happened again, and she wrote the time on the back of her hand with a ballpoint pen, because she had left her notebook in the staff room and did not trust herself to remember numbers under stress. Adayez learned all of it secondhand, in the copy room, from a woman who came in twice a day to photocopy things she did not need. On Friday afternoon, Teacher Lim put a single sheet of paper on the warm lid of the photocopier and slid it across with 2 fingers. Clause 14. The whole clause, not the first paragraph. The second paragraph had been highlighted in yellow, and beneath the highlighting sat one sentence about instruction and supervision permitted where a student's immediate safety is at issue and a legal guardian cannot be reached. Under it, in blue ink, in handwriting that pressed hard enough to emboss the page, Teacher Lim had written, "I called her at 8:12 p.m. I did not have the guardian's number. Lim Ha-in. They will ask me why I did not call the police instead," she said. "What will you say? That I called the person he would look at." Adayeze folded the page along its existing crease and put it in the inner pocket of her bag, next to the envelope from her bank, which she had not opened. because she already knew that rent was 620,000 won on the 25th, and that the pause clause in her contract said 70%, and that 70% of her salary was still more than her mother's clinic in Enugu charged for 3 months of tablets, which was the only reason the arithmetic did not frighten her yet. She called the immigration information line at 5:20 and was told, in careful English, to consult her employer. The seat in the 4th row was empty on Monday and on Tuesday, and nobody sent her a notice about it because she was not, on paper, his teacher anymore. At 11:58 that Tuesday night, in her room above the stationery shop, her phone lit the ceiling. The number came up under a name she had typed with 2 fingers 3 weeks ago and never once dialed. 2 minutes to midnight. She let it ring and thought about the one thing she had already decided not to tell him. The thing she had decided not to tell him was an envelope. It lay face down on the low table beside a bowl of mandarins, and she had put it that way on purpose, so she would not have to look at the school crest pressed into the flap. She had opened it 11 days ago. She had read it twice, standing up, still wearing her outdoor shoes. Non-renewal of contract. Term concludes 28 February. Sponsorship will lapse accordingly. 4 lines. No signature she recognized, just the stamp of an administrative office on the 2nd floor she had walked past 200 times without ever being invited inside. 6 weeks. That was what staying at a bus stop with an 8-year-old boy until midnight had cost her, though nobody at the school had said so out loud, because nobody had to. The ringing stopped. The ceiling went dark. Adaeze counted to 9 in the quiet, listening to rain finding the gutter above her window, and then the phone lit again, and this time she picked it up before she could talk herself into being sensible. Miss Nwosu. His voice was the same as it had been at the gate that night, level, unhurried, a man who had never in his life needed to raise it. Is Ha-jun with you? She sat up so fast the mandarins rolled. No. There was a pause on the line long enough for her to hear a door open somewhere in a very large apartment. The entry log shows the front door at 10:52, Seo Do-hyun said. His coat is on the hook. His shoes are gone. Mrs. Han thought he was asleep. Mr. Baek is checking the parking levels. Have you called the police? Another pause. In that pause she heard the whole shape of his life. The moment I call, there will be photographs of my son by 6 in the morning, he said. His name in the search rankings before breakfast. His grandmother will hear it from a reporter. Call them, Adaeze said. Miss Nwosu, call them and give me 9 minutes first, because I know where he is. She was already pulling her coat over her nightclothes, already tying her scarf over her head with one hand while the phone shook against her shoulder. 9 minutes later she was in the stairwell behind the community center, where the heating pipe ran along the wall and held its warmth until morning. Ji-ho sat on the 3rd landing with his shoes off and the yellow lunch tin in his lap, empty, lid clipped tight. He did not cry. He said, "You said you would still be here. I am here." She lowered herself onto the cold step beside him and did not touch him yet. Han arrived 4 minutes after the officers. He said nothing at all. He knelt on the concrete in a coat worth more than her year of rent and pressed his forehead to his son's shoulder, and the 2 policemen looked away out of some instinct older than protocol. The photographs came by 6, as he had known they would. His own statement went up at 7, 12 lines, his name signed beneath them, hers nowhere in it. At 8:10, the boy's grandmother telephoned Adaeze and said, "You will come to lunch on Sunday, not a request." So on Sunday, in that long, cold dining room, Adaeze set the yellow tin on the table among the silver because Ji-ho asked her to. Han moved his water glass to make room. Nobody explained it. Nobody needed to.